All right, so we were discussing about how to start a new project and how to do things, how to create a class, how to create up methods, and how they will interact between, how to create a new object, how you're going to call the methods. We also discussed something about access modifier, something about overloading, and I was also inclined to tell you about inheritance, right? But that is something which is doesn't come under basic things, because basic, someone who has no idea about how Java works will be very puzzled and overwhelmed about what I was telling till yesterday. But the reason I was telling this is because I was assuming you guys, some of you will be having better understanding of Java, and you guys can cope up with it. So start with, I always talk about this calculator program, and that's what I did. But that doesn't mean we are not going to start with the basic things. So we have to understand the fundamentals. And the fundamentals actually begins with your class, object, variable types, right? If conditions, for loops, arrays, strings. These are the fundamentals. I mean, all the things which you do in a Java program is actually rests on top of all these concepts, right? So we are going to talk about that. But the screen which you're seeing right now, this is the, as I said, this is the very very fundamental slides as well as some programs for your benefit. So I would ask every one of you to just go through these slides. I have already explained few of these slides earlier, but few of them I have not, and right now there's no need to do it as of now, because we'll do these things while we progress. But I still insist that you guys go through it. They're very, I think, very written in a very simplistic way. I think you can understand it better. I'm also talking about inheritance here. Few of you might say inheritance is an advanced concept, but I don't think it's an advanced concept. It's very fundamental as well, and it's very easy to understand. That's what I was trying to explain yesterday before I had to cut the call short for some other meeting, right? But I insist you guys go through these links. I'm going to post these links. I've already posted this previously, but there are new guys added into the group, so I'll do that again. Go through these slides and come up with questions. Okay, so if you see here also, I have this example of what is a class. I was creating the class here, and how I'm going to create the object out of it, right? So similar thing which I was doing earlier, in a very very slight similar way, I am doing the same thing. I have also mentioned something about that you should be doing it like this and not like this, right? So I'm saying this is anti object oriented, anti pattern. This is not a good way to write code. Good way is that for each operation you create a separate class, okay, and then create object of it and then perform the operation. Here I have tried to put everything in a same method. So these kind of differences are also present in this slide. So that's why I feel these slides are important for you to go through. This is another advanced way of doing it, the way I was talking about, like using abstract class. Remember I was talking about abstract class yesterday? So same way I've done it here. Now why I am asking you to do this is, if you are already have some background of Java, I think it will be good for you to try this on your own, because I don't want people who are good in Java or relatively better than Java than others. You should not be limited by the speed of the batch. So I want you guys to move further or faster than the speed of the batch. That will help you better. Okay, so that's the reason I projected this calculator program, and I am also saying you should try doing it, because if you can try this and understand this, that means you are already on in a right track, in a right direction, right? So if I'm also pointed here how creation of this calculator program, I have implemented three object oriented programming principles: encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism, right? So this is what I was trying to explain in this specific example. Never mind, if you are very very new to it, maybe it will not make much sense to you, and it's fine, you can skip this, but I still ask you guys to read it completely. This is the first, like when you ask what to do first, this is what you do. You first read through this whole document. Once you're done with these documents, maybe try these exercises if you want. If you're not, then it's okay. And anyway, I will be giving you some different assignments, but then you can start from here. This is for the people who have never done it. So if you have never done it, what do you do if you have never done something? You start with a guide called a step-by-step guide. This is the document where I have listed the steps. This is a step-by-step guide which button to click. Even I have actually captured the screenshot for it and placed it here. What button to click? I'm still assuming you need to have JDK installed, then you have to have Eclipse or IntelliJ installed. Once you have these two, then you are good to go. Then open the Eclipse, click on file, click on new, other, select Maven project. Now while you do these things, right, while you do these things, you will have questions, why I am doing this. So for beginning through 3-4 weeks, not 4 weeks, but at least for 1 or 2 weeks, uh, set aside this why question. Because if you're very, very beginner and you don't understand what you're doing, I would still insist you guys to keep doing it, keep following the guide. Because the moment you get hanged on a specific why question, you will not be able to proceed. For example, you might ask why I'm not checking this one, and why you're asking me to check this. I don't understand, and that's why I won't move ahead. This is a wrong strategy. Sometimes there is a possibility that you don't understand something, but you have a guide. The guide is telling you, dictating you to go through step by step process so that you can create a project. So ultimate goal is to create a project and create a class. So don't get stuck in between, saying I don't understand it, that's why I'm not able to do it. You might feel irritated while doing it, but that's why the need of step by step guide is, right? So just follow this guide step by step. See, I also provided descriptions here. I've also given the description, what is group ID, what is this, what is that. Try reading that. The best, if you don't understand it still and you really want to know, paste or copy it, create a screenshot, post in the group. I'll reply then and there. I'll try to reply rather. It's not that I can quickly, immediately answer your query, but you keep it there so that I give me some time. I'll just reply and I try to explain that. Okay, so that should be the strategy. So these are like rules of engagement we have to set here. The rules of engagement similar between you and me, similar, simple. You do what I am asking you to do, plain enough. Do it, then you get stuck, you take a screenshot, post in the group, I'll answer, then you continue. Don't get stuck in between, right? So go through this step by step guide. As I said, it has step by step guide. I'm explaining everything what you do next. So it has lot of screenshots for you to try, and once you do all of them, it will give you a working project, a working Maven project, right? And then inside that you have to start creating your classes. So I have already told you till past 3 classes we had, and yesterday's class was also very, very repetitive, I would say, where I talked about classes and objects. So whoever, either you are new or old, you still can be able to, you should be able to create a class and create a methods and create your first calculator program. All I'm asking is to create a calculator program, that's all. And calculator program, you can create a class, inside that you can create a methods, inside method you can create an operation, right? It's a very, very logical structure I'm asking you to do. A plus B equal to C, and you have to return the C, operate the C. I have written all the things which you want to do. I've already mentioned things here, right? This is like how you import the things. This you can escape for now, but try to do it till this point, till this step, rather till this step, before you can actually create a class. I mean, till this step is also fine, where you can actually create a Maven project and you have a class which you can actually run. Okay, then now here I have also steps for IntelliJ. Whoever is wish to use IntelliJ, you choose to go scroll down and you will get the steps on how to create a Maven project in IntelliJ. It's rather only 3 screens here, quite simple. Okay, then what to do next? Once you do that, then you have 2 programs to try. One is a simple program, second is a similar, the advanced version of it. So this, the people who have already understood the basic, they know class, objects, methods thing, you can try to create this calculator, enhanced calculator. People who are new, after you create the project, you can choose to create a simple calculator. That's all I'm asking right now. Okay, so for this week, this definitely will be your assignment. Apart from this, I will be talking some more things today, and that also for that also I'm going to give some assignments to you, that also becomes your assignment. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about some basics of Java, fundamentals of Java, from data types to if conditions, for loops, arrays. So I'm going to talk about all these things, and then I'm going to give you 1 or 2 assignments, which will be um, uh, the assignment. In that assignment, you will have to make use of all these things which I'm going to teach today, and then that also becomes your assignment. So there will be 2 assignments. One this, second is what I'm going to give you guys. Any questions so far in how to do and what to do and whatever? If anything coming into your head right now, any doubts, confusions? All right, so now if you remember last time we have been doing this, till yesterday I was doing this. Now this is bit advanced stuff where I was trying to explain some passing different number of arguments into a method. Now, as I said, this was not targeted towards the people who have never done anything with Java, right? So if you are from that category, don't try this. For you, I have already, as I said, I have already uh, created this one. So try only this one. Don't try that one. If you're capable of understanding what I'm doing here, then of course you can try this. I'll insist you guys to try this. But today's agenda, as I said, is about the basics. So I'll start with the basics. Okay. So let me start with the very basic one, which is data types. Now we discussed the data types in previous classes, isn't it? When we created these variables, we gave them a type. Now Java is a strongly typed language. It's called a strongly typed language. That means any variable which you want to use you have to define its type first, and it can only hold the value of that specific type. Other than that, it cannot hold it. For example, if I say int height here, and if I write height is equal to a string, it will give me an error. It will say, okay, it is not allowed because I'm required type for this is int, but you have provided a string, which is not allowed. So I cannot do that. So this is how the concept of type safety comes into Java. That means it gives protection from abuse of a variable. If variable is supposed to be holding integer, only thing which you should be allowed to do is to add integer there. You cannot add any other different kind of variables there. But that is not true with all the languages. Different languages have different structure. For example, JavaScript or TypeScript. I mean, TypeScript is an advanced version of, I think, built on JavaScript, but JavaScript doesn't have that restriction, right? So just for an example, this is JavaScript example. I can create a variable, and then I can assign a value to it. I can assign 1 to it, and I can also assign an integer to it, a string to it, right? So it's allowed there, but not in Java. So first thing you have to remember when you go and create a new variable, you need to add a type to it. You have to define the type. Now variables you can define and add many places. You can create it inside a method, or you can create it in the class. So both the places you can create it. All that matters is if it is here, that means all the methods which is present inside this class can have access to it, because this is the member of the class and any method can access it. But if it is inside a method, that means anything within the method, only that can access this variable. No other methods can access, because the scope is called as scope, SCOP, scope. The scope of the variable is limited to the method if it is defined inside the method. If it is defined beneath the class, or it's also called as instance variable, if it is defined there, that means you can use it within all the methods within the same class, provided it is marked as private. If it's private, then anyone can use it within the class but not outside. But if it is public, that means anyone outside the class also can use it, right? So there's a difference between private and public. There are two more here called as default and protected, which we're going to discuss later when we talk about access modifiers. But for now, all you have to remember is, and a good design is, that you make it private. Always make every member of the class private unless you really want to expose it. And variables in general should never be exposed. They always should be marked as private, right? That's the rule we discussed, or rather thumb rule we discussed yesterday. Remember? All right. So now Just simple example which I have tried to put here. There are few types already defined inside Java, right? Those types are called as primitive types. They're around in number. They're I think around 8. They goes by the name of integer, int, byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, char, and that's it. Okay, and I think by the name of it you can judge what is the meaning of all this. Integer always hold integers. Then bytes, then long, right? Long 8 byte range, very long, no need to memorize, right? That means it is, you can store longer values there. Float and doubles can store decimal values, but there's some distinction between these two. You don't have to memorize all of that. This is not going to come in an interview or any exams. But the reason you need to understand these is so that you know, while you create a program, you need to know which data or which data type I should be using in this case. For example, if you're adding two integers, it's always going to return you an integer, so the return type should always be integer. But what if you are adding a decimal values, right? So that can give you a return as decimals. So then you need to know what to put, float or double or byte or long or char. So you need to decide, you need to know about these things so that you can decide at runtime what kind of variables you need to declare to make use of. Okay, so as I said, you don't have to remember all of these. Don't try to memorize all of these, but these are called as primitive data types. Okay, so you see there are two types, non-primitive and primitive, right? These are actually primitive types, primitive data types: byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, and char. And then there are non-primitive types which comes and under which we have strings. But there are also few wrapper classes called as integer, double. They're also there, which we'll talk about later. They are called as wrapper data types, which we'll talk about later, not now. But for now, to start with the basic things, that's all you need to know, right? Mostly during the assignments, all those things, mostly you will be using integers and some character types and strings, and you will use strings a lot because most of the things which we work with and deal with usually comes in the string format. So strings is something which you need, which actually is a very very important part of any programming language, right? So we will be working with strings. But just to explain what we are right now doing, just to summarize, this particular program doesn't need much explanation. It's very very straightforward. These are the data types. These are called as primitive data types, which stores your variables and its values depending on what kind of data you're going to store in that. Okay, and the explanation is also written here. The double 8 bytes range, very long, no need to memorize. Boolean 1 bit, either it could be true or false. So boolean stores true or false. Now boolean is also a very very important because boolean is used in all the decision making. For example, if else, switch cases, and for loops or while loops, right? So boolean is also very important. They store two values, either it's a true or it's a false. The way you do it is true and false, right? Then you have char. So inside char you have can have one character at a time. The way you indicate is that using these two small quotes, that becomes a character. And if you notice, the string is nothing but a set of characters. So you see C U R R E R and this is nothing but a set of characters. So a string can also be broken in with the broken with a series of characters. You can broke it into series of characters, right? And that is also is an important activity which usually at least almost all Java developers, all programmers have to do it from time to time. Parse a string, get out some values from a string, bring it, take out inside, use inside a character variable and do something with it. So you will see in the coming days we'll do a lot of assignments and practices, and you know what I'm talking about. But these are basic fundamental data structures. I'm not going to go into too much details about bytes and how much data it stores, right? There's a lot of logic behind, because we don't want to do a PhD in Java, so we don't need to go inside into those kind of details. All we need to learn is what is it and how we are going to make use of it. That is going to be the extent of our exploration for these kind of concepts. Okay, Now let me just run this so that you know what I'm talking about. And the reason I'm able to run it because I have written all this inside a main method, right? So it is nothing doing nothing but just printing the values which I have initially set. So I'm first initially setting the values and then I'm just printing it at the bottom, right? Now, how you will make use of thing which I have just taught you. All you have to do is you go to the website which I've already talked about. There's a link. I'll send that link. You go there, navigate to this class, copy its content, copy the content, paste it inside your own maven own project and main method, and try to play around with it. Try to change value. Try to see if I try to enter some other value inside short. If I try to save a integer value in float, what will happen? Try to change, mess around with the double thing. Try to mess around with boolean. Try to change characters. Do something with these strings, right? Play around with it and try to keep on running this. Okay, and that is how you should be doing. Again, a step-by-step guide what to do. This is what you guys have to do. Whatever I'm telling you, this is all documented, written, pre-written for you. You can actually copy it, paste it. Don't worry too much about copy pasting. It's okay in the beginning if you're doing copy paste. I would of course still ask you guys to write it. I just refer it and start typing it on your own. That gives you your fingers some memory. It gives your fingers some practice, because you're not used to type the code if you're doing it for the first time. So it's better you type it on your own as well. All right. Also, because I'm discussing this, let me show you where this code is present. As I said, I will be posting the link, but you can also see it here inside this method, right? You will see whatever you are seeing it right now, whatever you're seeing here is actually present here. So you go to number 1 session, you will see this data types in Java here. Okay. All right, let me move on to the next one because we have to cover a lot of things for the week. So I'll go to the next one, string and characters. As I said, string is a very important concept because everything revolves around strings. Strings holds a center stage in any program. Okay. Now, what is a string? Again, I doubt this needs a detailed explanation. String is the set of characters. Your name, my name, anything which you write is in a text format. To save that text, you need a variable. The variable you can set is as string. So string, if you see, string x is equal to test. This is how I am doing a declaration. This is also called as declaration, and this is the assignment or initialization. So I am assigning a variable x with the value as test, whose type is string. Then there is another string called as y, its value is selenium. There is 2 more, c and d. Now here you might say, okay, 100 is an integer. Yeah, it is an integer, but it is saved as a string because anything which is surrounded by these two brackets, these two double quotes, whatever write inside it is actually a string. No matter what write numbers, everything is a string. Okay, if you are writing it between these two double quotes. So even though this looks like a number, but there still can be saved inside C. If you try to do this, it will give you an error. You will say 100 is an integer. I can want to save this inside a variable whose type is integer. It will give you an error. If you want to do that, you have to remove these double quotes. If you remove double quotes, then it will allow. If you don't, then it won't allow you. It will give you an error. If you really want to do that, then you say int equal to 100. But when you do that, and if you go and do this, then again you'll get an error. This is what type safety in Java is all about, which we discussed in the previous examples. All right. Now this specific code talks about the concatenation. Okay. Now the thing is, if you try to concatenate two integers using plus, it will result not in concatenation, rather it will result in addition of these two values, because the plus symbol, if you see the plus symbol which you have here, is actually example of an overloading. So Java at runtime determines what I am adding. Am I adding integer or a double or a float, something which can be added mathematically. If it can be added mathematically, it will go and add that. Okay, but if I am applying this with two integers, the plus sign, if I am applying this with two integers, it will end up in concatenation of these two strings. Plus sign, Java language is intelligent enough to manipulate this based on where you have applied it, the context, in what context you have applied the plus symbol. Okay, same here. So if you see a plus b, when you did a plus b, a is 100, b is 200. When we did a plus b, it gave me 300 because here mathematically it was possible. So it added those values. When I did x and y, x is test, y is selenium. When I did x plus y, it had concatenated it because there is no mathematical operation possible here. So it just concatenated it. But there's another interesting example, which is a plus b, a is 100, 200, and then there is in plus x. So now there is a dilemma with Java compiler. It need to understand what to add and what to concatenate. So it said a plus b can be added. So it has added and make them as 300, and x can be concatenated. So it has been concatenating. So 300 test is what you're going to get here. And it will just go so and so for different examples here. X plus y plus a test selenium 100. X plus y plus b test selenium 100 plus 200. Now this is interesting because here it did not added a plus b because it starts manipulating the expression from left to right. So it did first this x plus y, then it said x plus y plus a is 100. So it did x test selenium 100 here as a concatenation. Then it added b. Okay, I need to make this font bigger. I think few of you are on mobile. Then x plus y plus a plus b. Then it has added 200. Now this expression, this string and this string cannot be added mathematically. So it has just concatenated it. All right. Then you see C plus D. Now what is C plus D? C was 100 and 200, but they are stored as a string. So they have concatenated it like this as a string, 100 and 200 brought together as a set of characters. All right. Now similar thing goes with this character concatenation. The way I have talked about this, a similar thing will happen here also. So no rocket science here. Exactly it works the same way. Now if you have no doubts here, then we'll move on to the next one. I'll go to the incremental and decremental. Now this actually makes more sense when we talk about for loops, right? So plus plus I plus plus, j minus minus, I minus minus. What they really mean, I'm going to skip this one for now until we reach the for loops. So don't want you guys to be deluged or flooded with lot of information in the first go. So I'm skipping this one. But this anyway we will be using for lot of looping operations because plus plus I and minus minus I we use a lot when we actually do write a for loops. Okay. However, there is some distinction here called as pre-increment and post-increment. There is a subtle difference between a plus plus I and p or an I plus plus. There is subtle difference between these two things. One is called as pre-increment, second is called as post-increment. And that's something which we'll talk about later. As I said, I don't want to flood you with lot of minute details in the very beginning itself. Now next one I'm going to go towards till we reach array and for loops, because my assignment which I'm going to give you guys deals with all of these data types, class and methods, data types, if conditions, and for loops, and little bit of arrays. So I need to cover these 5 things today so that I could give you those assignments. Okay. So please bear with me. I think if you have some background about it, these things are actually very basic things. You already have seen it in the past. So it should be faster, easier for you to understand. For the guys who have not done it before, maybe a little bit here and there, maybe some things you're getting, something you're not getting, which still is fine, because in the beginning all you need to do is to practice. My teaching will not help you unless you actually do it on your own. And how to do it, I am just telling you that how you will proceed with it. Okay. So, and this session is also going to be recorded. If you in doubt, you go and watch it again, or you just post the questions. So I'm repeating this again and again and again, and that how to proceed with this learning of Java. Never mind. I'll jump on to the next one called as conditional operators. Now this is very interesting because this is again a fundamental pillar of any program, because in any program you need to solve puzzles and you need to cover cases, right? If this happens, then do this, and if that happens, do that, right? So this always happen. This is the logic you have to develop for decision making. Without this you cannot really write a working code, right? Because in any code or any puzzle there are conditions, and to handle conditions you need, Java provides you two things. One is if conditions, second is switch cases. So we are going to talk about these two. First we'll talk about if conditions, and then we'll talk about switch cases. So if conditions, as name suggests, again pretty fundamental, which is if some condition is true, then do something. If some other condition is true, then do that, and if both the conditions are not true, then do that. So this is the basic logic of conditional operators. The point here is that you need to provide something here. This is called as expression. Based on this, it will decide. Based on this value, the code or program pointer will decide where to go, right? These are called as operators. Double equal to, greater than equal to, less than equal to. These are called as operators, right? So here I am trying to say if B, I use two equal tos, which says I want to compare. Single equal to is for assignment. When I say B equal to A, that means I want to assign the value of A to B. For us, when I'm only using a single equal to, but when I'm saying B double equal to A, that simply means I am trying to compare these values, and the return of these will be true or false. So if conditions should always have true or false. Okay. Now if you see, I have A equal to 10 and B equal to 20 written here. That means when I run the program, the value of A will be 10, the value of B will be 20. When it reaches here, the value of B will be matched with value of A. So B equal to A. Is B and A equal? Answer is no. That means that B and A is not equal. That means it is false condition. Since it is false, this will fail and it will not come here. It will go and check here. Is B greater than A? Is B greater than A? That's true. B is greater than A. That means this condition will be true. Once it is true, that means it will go inside this block. And if you notice, everything is marked as a block. So this, when this is true, this block will be getting executed. If this is true, then this block will be getting executed, right? But once this is executed, that's it. Then else will not be executed. So either one of these three conditions, only those will be executed based on what you are writing here. And as I talked about, these are called as operators. There are different kinds of operators available. This is for comparison operator. This is greater than, less than, greater than equal to, less than equal to, not equal to. Then and operator, like you want to check two conditions, A equal to B and B equal to C. Then you use this for representing and this for representing or. Okay, so these are the operators which you can actually use to provide between these if conditions, so that if conditions can work properly. Okay, now let me show you how this executes at runtime. This is called as debugging. Now debugging is an art. When you go to a company, there will be lot of code there written there by people who came before you, and they will ask you to solve problems in that framework or project or Java code. Now the first step you do is debugging, right? So you put breakpoints, you go step by step. At runtime you check the errors, and you know what is the value of the variable when the error happened. For example, I know the value of A and B is 10 and 20, but what really happens when the program executes? What is the value of this? Do I know the value of this? I can sense it in my brain. Okay, because B is a 20, A is 10, maybe its value should be false. But how do I really know? So I need to learn how to check the values of variables and expressions when the program is running. This is called as debugging, and it's a very important skill set. Even if you're not a good programmer, but if you're a good debugger, you can still survive in a programming world. By the way, if you're not a good programmer, of course you can't become a good debugger. That's the irony. But debugging, as I said, is the most important skill everyone should have, so that you can solve your own problems. For example, when you face problems, when you are getting error in your Java program, who do you go to? You maybe come to me, that Akash, I'm facing this problem. When I face it, where do I go? I have no one to go to for solution. So either I go to Google, or I try to find the solution on my own by debugging the program, right? That's why I'm insisting. The next thing which I'm going to show you, this is the steps which I'm going to take, is called as debugging. And whenever you face problems, issues, you always should be first try to debug it on your own. Find the error, search over internet. If still doesn't work, for after you try for half an hour, 1 hour, then come and ask me. Okay, right? So my original intention was to show you what is the value of this expression at runtime, isn't it? To do that, I want to stop the code here, because if I just go and run it, if I just go and click on run, the program will just run, it won't stop, but I want to stop. So how to do that? First of all, I put a breakpoint here. This is called as breakpoint. This is available in Eclipse as well as IntelliJ. Okay, that means when I run this program now, it will should stop here. But the difference is, this time I won't click on run, I'll click on debug. When I click on run and expect it to stop here, it won't stop, because this is only relevant for debugging. So if I want my code to stop here, I will have to do a right click, click on debug. The moment I do that, now the code has stopped here, and this point of time it is telling me the value of B is 20 and value of A is 10. So at runtime, this is the value of these. But what is the value of this expression? Again, very simple. You select it, the whole expression, you do a right click, you click on evaluate expression, and click on evaluate, and it will give you the value at runtime. So it's telling me the value of B is equal to A is false. That I already know before, but just to check what really code is interpreting, this is what it is able to find it. Now I'll put another breakpoint here, because I want to check everywhere. I want to check all the places where the decision is happening. Then I go and I can do two things. I can just click on resume program. If I do a resume program, it will stop at the next breakpoint which it encounters. And here also I can do the same thing. I can do this, click on evaluate, and this time it is giving me true. Now, since it is giving me true, that means it will go inside this. Previously, it didn't go inside this. This time it will go here, right? If I click on resume, you will notice it has come here, because this was true. So this is how basically you debug a program. And while debugging, you can check the values also. Debugging has many utilities for error resolutions. Right now, there is no error coming, so I cannot reproduce that problem and that how to debug an error. But that is a very normal exercise to do. Whenever in the future, when we start more advanced concepts, there will be errors. Then I'll also show you how to solve your own errors, which is coming in Selenium or Java program. Any questions in this so far? Debugging thing and this if conditions? Okay, I'll just stop it. So now I have stopped the program. This is how you stop it. Now I'll move forward. Now there are some examples I have written here. Okay, there are different use cases of different operators. So there are not equal to, less than equal to. There are different examples I have tried to put here. There are different kind of examples. I'm not going through all the examples, but the idea is that you should. Okay. As I said, it's all the content is over internet. I will be providing you with the link. You guys have to try all the examples which you see here on your own system and try to type them out. Don't try to copy and paste. Right now, this is an example which is again advanced bit, more tricky example for the new guys, which is here I am not only checking the condition once, but I am actually checking it within the within a specific decision making block, which is also called as nested loops, nested conditions, nested decision making, right? So this is if number is greater than 10, then again I am doing this. If only number is greater than 10, then I am checking this. Okay, so in the previous one it was just plain simple if else, but now once this condition is true, I'm also putting another condition inside. So there can be multiple nested decision blocks possible depending on what kind of logic you are writing. As I said, this is just arsenal for you to use for your problem solving, right? Depending on what kind of problem you have, depending on what kind of logic you're writing for it, what kind of algorithm you're writing for it, based on that you're going to use if conditions or nested if conditions or nested if condition. You can put any nested ifs. Of course there is actually technically no limit, but logically there is, because you shouldn't be writing too much ifs. If you're doing that, that's considered a wrong design or wrong patterns, which is bad thing, right? So 2-3 nested ifs are actually normal depending on your problem statement. Okay, so here also the same thing we can try. You can put try to do a debugger. You, whenever you write program, try to do this as well. This gives you practice. So if I again do a debug here, and I just put breakpoints everywhere so that it doesn't get skipped. So I'll just do a debug. Okay, I don't want to stop it here, so I'll remove it. Click on resume. It has now stopped here. So what is the value of number? Is 15. If I go and check this expression, it gives me true. That means it will go inside. Once it goes inside, it will again halt here. So it has went inside. I again check, is it true? So I'll go and click on evaluate expression. Is it true? Yes, it's true. That means it will go inside, right? And the system 15 will be printed. So if I do this, and if I do this, you will see in the console it will be printed. This will be printed. All right, so that is how the if condition really works. There are, as I said, a lot of examples present here. Different, for example, there are actually examples. For example, write a program to find highest number from 3 numbers. Let's say if I'm giving you 3 numbers, x, y, z, you need to find out which one is the highest, right? So how do you do that? So these kind of logic is what you need to write. So if x is y greater than y and x is greater than z, that means this is also has to be true and this also has to be true. Then that simply means x is the highest. If x is greater than y and x is greater than z as well, that means x is the highest. But if not, then check y is greater than z. If this is greater than z, then this is the highest, else z is the highest. So this is the logic I have written here to tell you how we can make use of these operators and decisions based on what kind of problem you're trying to solve. Okay, now there is some another example of OR operators. So AND and OR actually are used for true and false, right? So AND and OR are actually applied on true and false conditions. Okay, so there is some logic behind it. For example, if true and true gives you true, but if there is any false, it will always give you false. So that's how AND operator works. If any it will only give you true if both the conditions are true. For example, in this case, if this is true, in this example, if this is true and this is also is true, only then this will become true, else false. Okay, so if there is only even one false, it will always give you the false as a total. But that's not the case with the OR. So with the OR, if one is true, that means the expression will also be true. Okay, so example here is we're using the name. Username is Manish. Username is equal to Tom. This is false. Username is equal to Peter. This is also false. So the combined result of this will be false. So false or false will give you false. Same goes here. Username is Manish. Is Manish equal to Steve? False. Username as Manish. Manish equal to Joey. It's again a false. But the idea is if this is false and this is also false, the whole expression is also false if it is a OR operator, right? So this will also be a false. So eventually it will go and print the else part, because there is no condition in the else part. So if this is if condition and else if condition doesn't work, it gives you false, then always the else will always be there for printing or for whatever logic you want to do or apply there. Any questions so far in this if else? All right. Now, switch case, I'll not talk about today. For decision making, if is now okay is enough for today, or enough for now for coming days. Switch is something which we'll do for later with some more advanced cases when we use Selenium and all, but not today. The next thing which is important is for loop, which I want to cover. We'll not be talking about while loop and do while loop. Uh, we'll simply be talking about a simple for loop. A simple for loop here is the concept of for loop. If you have not heard it at all previously, it is to iterating on specific piece of code, right? For example, you want to print numbers from 1 to 10, then you shouldn't be writing system.out.println 1, system.out.println 2, system.out.println 3. Rather, you should be putting this code between a block called as for block. And once you do that, you also need to provide some conditions in it. So condition says, usually it deals with the counter. So counter here is I, and all variables need a data type, so you need to define it inside. So int I starts from 1 until I is less than 10, and with each iteration keep incrementing it. That's the instruction I have to put between the for loops. So again, I'll say it again. I want to run this line for 10 times. So I have to write from where to start. So I'll say starts from I and should end till 10. And every time I do it, the value of I should be incremented. So every time it should be incremented, right? Now again, I make use of the make use of the debug thing to explain it better. I'll just put a breakpoint here and we'll kind of try to monitor the values of I here. So I'll say I'll right click on it, click on debug, and you'll see what happens. So right now value of I is 1, because I've already said value of I is 1. Now if I click on resume, the value of now I becomes 2, because it has executed this line, it has printed it, but the value of I has been incremented. So with each value it will be incremented. I can also check the this condition. This condition is true. So until this condition is true, the for loop will keep on happening. But there will be time, because every time I'm incrementing the I value of I. So every time, right now I is 2, then it will be 3, it will be 4, 5, 6, 7. There will be a time when then I will not be less than 10, because value of I will be incremented to 11. And that's when the loop will cease to work, cease to, and it will actually exit. It will not print more values. So you see right now it is still true. Let me just keep on running this. 7 I is equal to 8, still this condition is true. I equal to 9, still this condition is true. I equal to 10, still this condition is true, because I'm using equal to as well. So if I evaluate it now, this is still true. But if I run it again, the value of I becomes 11, and the condition cease to exist. Condition becomes false, right? Since the condition becomes false, it has come out of the for loop. So that's how basically for loop really works. So just to show you, uh, where is the log? Never mind. So if I just stop these loops, these conditions, and I just run this, you will see the first, this loop is doing this part. So every time the value of I is incremented, and that I'm printing it as well. So every time the value of I is incrementing and I'm printing it. Okay, now there are a few more examples doing that. Right now I only want to print even numbers between 1 and 20. Now this is where your logic comes, right? Because for loop is the thing which can iterate. That's all what it does. But here the situation is, condition is, I want to write a program which only prints even numbers, right? So do that, I have to think from where to start till what point to end, what should be the condition, and how I should be incrementing. So previously I was incrementing I plus plus, which also means I is equal to I plus 1. So I plus plus actually means I equal to I plus 1. That means every time I am looping through, the value of I is incrementing. But here I want to print only even numbers, and even number actually has a difference of 2, right? So I have, every time I print even, but then I have to increment it to a next value which is plus 2. So this time for each for loop, the value of even will be different. So if I just show you this as well by the mean of debugging, I'll click on debug. Now notice the value of this variable even. So if I click on here, value will be 2. Now 4, 6, because every time it's iterating, it is incrementing value by 2. Now this is the logic with what you guys have to develop. What to write and how to write, this comes by practice. This is not something, this is not a literature where you read it and you understand what's happening. This is something which you need to practice. This is not a literature class. That's why I'm insisting too much on practice, 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 and practice. This is what you have to try on your own system by writing in by your own hands. That is the way to learn. Okay, so a few more complex examples. I'll insist you guys to try this as well. Now there are example of pattern printing. Again, for now I will not give you this as an assignment also, it's okay. But if you want to try, feel free to go to any of these sessions and try, because if you are advanced student, you have already done it before, these things might be boring because you already know about it. So it's better you go ahead and try some other examples which is present here. Okay, if not you're new, then try this much. uh, any doubt so far till this for loop? All right, so next I wanted to talk about arrays, but I don't want to because I don't know how much you guys are actually getting this, because you have been awfully silent today. No questions, so either you're getting everything or you're getting not getting much. So I'm assuming that you're not getting much. That means you need time to understand this, consume this, and I will not be talking about arrays and strings today. Rather, I will ask you guys to do the assignments which I'm going to create and send it to you. Like how to, it will be program manner. It won't be like these kind of things. It won't be as simple as these things. It will be in a format of some logic. So, for example, additions, averages, mean, factorials, right? It will be of that format. Finding even number, finding odd numbers. I'll give you these kind of assignments. Try them. uh, so that will just be assignments, but you also have to try these. I have actually talked about these things, so you have to copy these from here, rather actually see it and type it. Whatever you feel like typing, type that and try to run it on your own system, and try to debug as well. Conditional operators, try it. This full text here. You can try exactly what I have written here. Type it out. Try to debug it. See what is the value, how it changes. Then try for loops. So we have talked about till for loops today, conditions and fors. Of course, there are different kind of fors available. Do while. We don't have to worry too much about all these. Just focus on for and if conditions, data types, and conditions. That's it. Operators, how to put conditions there. That's all you have to do this week. Okay, any doubt in how to do it and what to do? Any concerns? Now's the time to ask, because next time we talk, we'll talk on Saturday, so there will be 5 days gap in between while we actually interactively talk. Of course you can post your problems over the WhatsApp. I will try to reply as soon as I get time. Um, but if you really have something which you want to ask and you're thinking I better not ask or better ask last next time, I mean, I still insist you guys to please come forward and ask it now, or put it inside the chat. I'm giving you another 2 minutes to think and ask.
सर
Yeah, carry on.
गिटहब के लिंक वापस से व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे भेज दो ना.
Ha, I'll send that GitHub link. I'll send all the resources and links in the WhatsApp group
ओके.
after the class. We'll do that.
अरे रिकॉर्डेड वीडियो कहाँ पे मिलेंगे?
recorded videos you will get it over, I think Ekta will send it, I'll post in the group, you will be getting a YouTube link.
Okay.
You
Sir,
have to
actually
click.
I'm in